Hey everyone, welcome to week 10 of the college football season. The season is just flying right along. My name is Mike Browning. I am the host of College Football Road Trip at cfbroadtrip.com. We are back home in Texas this week after a couple weeks on the road. First at the Charlotte Western Kentucky game in Bowling Green, Kentucky a couple weeks ago, followed by the past weekend, the Missouri-Kentucky game in Lexington, and an absolute downpour for the entire game. That was a lot of fun to be in, although a little wet. There are not a whole lot of really strong matchups this week. There's a couple decent top 25 matchups. Nothing great, but we know that upsets always happen. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into this week's picks. We're going to start off this week with an ACC matchup. We have NC State traveling to number 23, Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest is probably a team that has overachieved a little bit this year, have beaten a lot of teams' expectations. They're right in the conversation for some of the best teams in the ACC, behind Clemson, of course. So with that said, I think Wake Forest will be able to keep that up again this week. I think they will be able to pull off the win. So I'm going to pick Wake Forest to beat NC State in ACC play. Let's go to Notre Dame next. We have Virginia Tech traveling to number 16 Notre Dame. I was very shocked by how poorly Notre Dame played last week, or maybe on the flip side, how well Michigan played against them. I was not expecting a blowout in that game. So the question is, how motivated will Notre Dame be for the rest of the season, knowing that they are absolutely out of the football playoff race at this point? I do think that this week they will be able to put it back together. Virginia Tech is not the strongest opponent for them to face this season. So with that said, I think Notre Dame will bounce back this week and pull off the win. So I'm going to pick Notre Dame to win at home over Virginia Tech. Next, let's go to the SEC and what is probably the best matchup of this weekend. It's a top 10 matchup. In Jacksonville, Florida, we have number 8 Georgia playing number 6 Florida. It's going to be really hard to pick this game. Both teams are talented. Both teams have had games that look really good. Both teams have had games where they have struggled along the way. So to me, this is kind of a toss-up game. And because of that, I'm just going to pick Florida because they're the higher-ranked team going in. It wouldn't surprise me to see Georgia win, but I think Florida will pull it out. I'm going to pick number 6 Florida to win over number 8 Georgia in Jacksonville, Florida. Let's go to an ACC matchup, a matchup that's always big, even though the opponents aren't at their strongest this year. We have Miami traveling up the road in Florida to Tallahassee to take on Florida State. This is a matchup that doesn't have too much going on with it as far as ACC play and being able to play for a division title or do anything important. But we always know that interstate matchups are always big. And so this is going to be a matchup we're seeing, even though both teams are struggling a little bit this season. In this case, I'm going to pick the home team to win this matchup, and the matchup of fairly evenly matched teams. So I'm going to pick Florida State to win at home. Florida State to win over Miami in ACC play. Let's go to a Big 12 matchup. Two teams that pulled off minor upsets last week. We have TCU, who beat Texas last week, traveling to Oklahoma State, who pulled off a win over Iowa State last week. So TCU at Oklahoma State. The Big 12 has been absolutely crazy this year. It's kind of taken a Pac-12 type play to it, as far as you never know who's going to win from week to week. You had OU lose last week. You had Texas lose last week. You had Iowa State lose last week. So you never know what's going to happen. In this matchup, I'm going to pick the home team to win. Oklahoma State is starting to get some momentum behind them. I think their win over Iowa State was actually more impressive than TCU's win over Texas. I think that'll go over it too this week as well. So I'm going to pick Oklahoma State to win at home over TCU in Big 12 play. Speaking of Pac-12, our Pac-12 matchup is next. We have number 9 Utah traveling to Washington. If you haven't been looking, there are now a couple really good teams in the Pac-12. You have Utah and Oregon, who are both in the top 10 this week. Utah traveling to Washington. Washington is a team that has struggled, I think, more than most people have expected this year. And I think their struggles are going to continue into this week. I think Utah and Oregon are just on a collision course for the Pac-12 championship, which if they both win out to go in is going to be an amazing matchup. So in order for that to happen, Utah has to win this week, and I think they will. So I'm going to pick number 9 Utah to win on the road at Washington in Pac-12 play. Let's go to a Conference USA matchup now. We have Florida Atlantic traveling to Western Kentucky and Bowling Green. As I mentioned, I was at the Western Kentucky game a couple weeks ago. They were looking really good until they traveled to Marshall this past weekend and lost in a close matchup at Marshall. But they're going back home. Western Kentucky has looked pretty good at home this week. Florida Atlantic has been pretty decent in conference play this week. So far this year, but this week I think they will hit a Western Kentucky team that has a lot to play for, trying to win their division at home. So Western Kentucky, I think, will win this matchup at home over Florida Atlantic in Conference USA play. Let's go to an ACC matchup next. We have Virginia traveling to North Carolina. Virginia has really struggled over the past few weeks. They were ranked in the top 25 just a few weeks ago. Now they have completely fallen out. North Carolina is a team that you never really know what you're getting out of them from week to week. They looked really good to start off the season. They struggled a little bit over the past few weeks. So you don't really know what you're going to get from either of these teams, because this is such an even matchup between these two teams. As I said, I almost always go with the home team in these types of matchups. In this case, that favors North Carolina. So I'm going to pick North Carolina to win at home over Virginia in ACC play. Let's go to the Saturday night matchup, another top 25 matchup. We have an American conference between two top 25 teams. That's pretty awesome in my opinion. We have number 15 SMU traveling to number 24 Memphis. I have not been on SMU's bandwagon at all this season. I've seen that they've struggled a couple weeks, although they did pull off wins over TCU and Tulsa, where they probably shouldn't have pulled off the wins. Memphis is coming off a couple good weeks as well. And honestly, I'm still not sold on SMU yet, especially going on the road to Memphis. So in this matchup, I'm picking the upset. I'm picking Memphis as the home team to win over the higher-ranked SMU team. Memphis over SMU in American Conference play. And our final matchup, let's go back to the Pac-12, that Oregon team, that top 10 ranked number 7 Oregon that I discussed a little bit earlier, traveling to USC. USC has looked a little bit better over the past couple weeks. They did lose to Notre Dame, but that was a really close matchup. The question is, Oregon, will they keep up all of the momentum that they had? And I think they will. I think Oregon will go and win pretty convincingly at USC. Oregon over USC in Pac-12 play. So those are our matchups for this week. We'll see if I can contain my 7-3 winning percentage that I've had over the past couple of weeks this week. As I said, there aren't a whole lot of great matchups, of great top 25 matchups, just a couple this week. But I think there'll be a lot of really good games. As we've seen in the past 3 weeks, a top 6 team has gone down that probably shouldn't have gone down. So we'll see if that happens again this week. In the meantime, go out, enjoy the games. We'll see you for week 11. Have a great weekend, everybody.